Howdy and welcome back to the Ineligibles podcast. My name is Will Stone. He is Chase Caldwell. Uh, been a while since you've heard from us, since we've talked to y'all. A lot has happened. Lot has happened. We're gonna try to get to as many things as we can uh, before we spend too much time on here and Chase has to go to dinner. So we
Yep.
don't want to, be on here for 2 hours. But we wish you all, hope you all had a very Merry Christmas, very Happy New Year. Hope things are starting off right for you. Hopefully they're going as well for you as they are for uh, this Aggie football staff with these transfers they're reeling in. But um, let's hold on to that for now. I think maybe the best place to start is is the last game that this team played. Um, uh, 55 scholarship players for A&M took the field in the Texas Bowl. We were all standing throughout the game in case they needed to call us down there and put us in because we were a little shorthanded, but came up short. But uh, tip of the cap to uh, the guys who did play and have stuck around and are still going to be part of this team. Guys like Max Wright, tip of the cap on a great career here. But I guess just not to like we're not going to sit here and break down this whole game, but is there anything from the bowl game that stood out to you, Chase?
Um, not not just a ton. I would say one of the main things that stood out to me is that we just we have had the worst luck at quarterback for such a long time now that I hope that whatever curse that has been cast upon us, that hopefully that is gone starting next year. But we'll see. I hate that how everything transpired in that game.
Yeah,
I will say, you know, to be as short-handed as we were, I think we held our own pretty well. But but it was kind of it to me it was a modern day lower level bowl game for two teams that didn't fully want to be there, with an outgoing coach and transfers galore that
yeah,
make it to where let me back up. Tip of my hat to the guys that were there and did play there, but when you're suddenly having a hodgepodge together a team, it doesn't have the same effect that bowl games used to have, where this is
yeah.
the last ride for that team,
Right.
because half the guys that made up that team aren't even there anymore.
Yeah.
And it just, that part of it, it's not just us. I mean, there's plenty of other teams that are that way, but that's the modern era in the
Yeah.
transfer portal.
I mean, look at what happened to Florida State in their bowl game.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they had a single starter that played in that game, either due to injury, uh, opt out, NFL draft declaration. Uh, heck, the guy, their second string quarterback, he was like, "I'm transfer." He's like, "I'm transfer. Like, I'm out of here. I'm not going to play in this bowl game and get beat to death by the Georgia defensive line. Like, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go play somewhere else." So
Yeah.
it was like stuff like it's and that's not a coaching change, but um, in our situation with a coaching change, like half those guys are already gone. Um, the guys that are still here, have already most of them have already taken jobs elsewhere. So like it's just a weird dynamic and a weird
Mhm.
situation for everyone to be in, but uh, it's still a game. It's still, like they still got those practices in. They still got to uh, play in this game, and some of these young guys got to show what they got, because they a lot of the guys that played in this game we hadn't seen a ton of this
Mhm.
year. And I mean, heck, like let's like look no further than Marcel Reed. He didn't
Right.
expect to play that game. Like he was like, yeah, like I'm here. in case of emergency. But Jalen Henderson had been playing pretty well
Right.
in his time. So, um, and like the first play of the game is just epitome of what we've all endured the past couple of years. And like
Exactly.
the first, like we got a first down on the first play of the game, but our quarterback broke his arm. They had to, like he had to have surgery, and they had to put an air cast on that thing. And you put in a true freshman who has played very, very sparingly this season, and he threw for 360 yards, and wasn't like obviously wasn't perfect, but for all things considered, he looked pretty dang good.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, he also was going up against the Oklahoma State defense, but it was for what it was. I think we played well. For what it was, I think it was the best that we can do. But at the same time, it just to me it was the perfect exclamation point to the Jimbo Fisher era
Yeah, like
of
the
just it just went out with a poof.
yeah, it was a very it was a very appropriate ending to the past era um in the old regime.
Yeah.
Um, and going into that game, I don't think I realized the guys that we weren't going to have. Like obviously, you know, like anyone that had entered the transfer portal at that time, I knew they weren't going to be here, obviously.
Mhm.
But and I knew Edgerrin Cooper wasn't going to play because he had said that in his NFL announcement, which is totally fine. But for some reason, I thought McKinley might play. I don't know why I thought that, but he didn't play. Shamar Turner sounds like he. It's not official, but it sounds like he's probably going to return, but wasn't able to play in that game for whatever reason. Guys like Le'Veon Moss, Jacoby Matthews had injuries. Noah Thomas had injuries. We had 3 scholarship receivers in the game, and
Yeah.
it doesn't just affect like oh we only have like these guys aren't playing, but the guys that did play, I went and looked at this on PFF, like guys like Shamar Stewart and David Hicks played more snaps in that game than like it's almost double their highest snap count of any other game they played in was this game.
Well,
Like
that's what I'm saying. Like that's I'm glad you said it that way because um, the guy, like us going in losing that game, and like just the way that the game set up, and me saying what I just said about it was the poof that ended the Jimbo Fisher era. Like what I mean by that, it's not against the guys that played in that game. Um, and it's not even necessarily against the guys that opted out of that game even. Um, it's just the fact that all of those guys that were in that game, that team was hodgepodge together. You can't just take guys and put them all in and say, "Hey, go start this game that you've never played together as a team like this with this group starting together for the first time ever and have that many snaps together, and you're not going to have cohesion that way." That's just not going to happen. Again, it's not just A&M that's having that problem. That's the modern era of college football.
yeah,
But probably this year we probably had it more than the average team, just given the landscape of everything going on with our team. So,
yeah,
um, but to your point, I mean, you got receivers, 3 scholarship receivers that are out there, and a freshman quarterback that comes out there that hadn't seen any snaps hardly at all. That you don't have that timing and rhythm with each other on offense. You don't have that timing and rhythm with each other on defense. So to go out there and play a perfect game, it's not going to happen. It's going to be somewhat sloppy, even if you don't want it to be. Even if those guys are trying their heart out, it's going to end up being a little bit sloppy because they haven't really been playing as that unit all season long.
Yeah.
And part of that's Jimbo Fisher's fault for never rotating guys. You play the same four guys every play. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But
But yeah, like to your point, like it's not just that Marcel is young and hadn't played. It's, you know, they didn't like practice with like, oh, like this is Marcel's game. He's going to start this game.
mhm,
Uh, he had never played with that group of receivers,
right.
or like Chase Basantas played right tackle all year. He played right guard in this game. You know,
Mhm,
like I think, you know, long term, I think he's a great fit there, but he hadn't done that all year. You know,
right.
and you know, Layden Robinson is, you know, injured going to the NFL. I think Mark Naboo was injured, and Ruben Fothery, who played very little this year, got some snaps at left guard for some reason.
Yeah.
He did fine, but I'm just saying, like, it was just, you know, I think my main point is, if for anyone, A&M fan or not, that watched this game, uh, that's not what the team will look like next year at all. Um, from a lineup standpoint, from a performance standpoint, obviously from a coaching standpoint, uh, strength and conditioning, like you name it. Like
Mhm.
this, like I feel like some people will watch that and be like, oh my god, A&M's going to be terrible next year. Look at this team that like everyone left, blah blah blah. You know, like if you want to think that, like that's fine. It's a free country. You can think
Yeah.
that if you want
Let
to.
let them think it. You know.
Uh, and to that point, like this off season in particular, and typically this is how you should feel every off season. Uh, you shouldn't and you shouldn't care about what any media person says about this team that doesn't cover this team. Even the ones that do, maybe, but people outside of this, you know, outside of A&M, maybe more national guys or other schools, don't really know the ins and outs. And like, you know, people are putting out, you know, quarterback rankings for the SEC and power rankings and things like that. You know, I'm probably going to write a way too early top 25 and put that out next week. But none of that stuff matters. You know, it's just fodder. It's just like people are just trying to, you know, to get clicks and engagement and things like that.
Well,
And you know,
that's exactly right. Will you follow A&M very closely, right? And you like you like the offensive line because that's your uh, your position, your affinity, right?
yeah.
So with you knowing this team and all of that, let's ask you, tell me how good do you think that our protection, how will our protection improve when you're seeing Colin Klein's Colin Klein is the offensive coordinator and Adam Cushing's run game coordinator, his offensive line, when he comes in there with our offensive linemen that we have, all his schemes coming in, merging with Colin Klein's group, and then you start, Connor Wigman. How is that going to fare against Alabama's defensive line next year? You can't answer
Well,
that question. There's, there's too many variables. If you type that into a TI-84, it's going to
yeah,
come up and come out and say, not enough information.
yeah,
That's the point. The point that you're making there is, don't put just too much stock into this thing because there's so many moving parts, especially when you have a whole coaching change, a lot of transfers and all of that. Sure, you can't say like this is what it's going to look like next year. None of the
yeah,
half of the coaches that were there, at our bowl game, aren't even there anymore. We our head coach was in the press conference talking to the guys
the
about
announcer.
yeah, like that's I don't know if I've ever seen that happen before. Where the
Yeah,
head coach is watching his team play with the announcers and
yeah,
literally cheering them on, like, "Oh yeah, good job."
yeah,
I don't think I've ever seen that happen before. It just so happened that that's where we were, So,
Yeah.
um,
And it's January 5th. The the portal just closed. And it's
mhm,
really not even all the way closed because you know, there's this 48-hour announcement window, and there's this other 5-day window for teams that played on Monday. And and the NFL draft declaration deadline is later this month, and signing days in February. So and guess what? After all that, the portal opens back up after the spring, and there's a whole other wave of movement. So um, we're gonna do our best and try to tell you what we think at a given point in time. But at one point, I'm like, man, watching in person, watching the ball game, I'm like, man, this sucks. I feel like uh, I just don't know. I'm looking at the team, and I'm like, we got some good players out there, and they're doing some good things. But it was really just a case of you know Oklahoma State probably had a full allotment of scholarships and minimal transfers, and their whole coaching staff was still there. That's been there for 12 years, like however long Gundy's been there.
mhm.
Um, and we had a hodgepodge staff with a ton of injuries and opt outs and transfers, and a fourth string quarterback who was making his first ever, meaningful,
Yeah.
meaningful playing time. So uh, I'm super proud of the guys that played and the coaches that coached and all of that. And before we move on, big shout out to the 12th man. Sam Matthews. How has he not gotten on the field before? He didn't just make a lot of tackles. His PFF grade, which isn't the end all be all, but he was one of the top graded bowl performers, like top 10 guy in bowls, and got an interception, was making tackles, and just all over the field. And I'm like, man, I wish this guy had more eligibility. Bring him back next year and let him play some. But it was super cool for him to get that chance and make the most of that opportunity, though.
Yeah, it was. And I like that. That's been a common occurrence whenever A&M teams have been um, not as good as maybe they should. It seems like all of a sudden the 12th man comes out of nowhere and really performs. We've had some really good 12th men in the past probably 15 years or so.
Yeah,
Maybe even longer than that. That um, yeah, you love to see that, number one. But but you kind of wish that more people outside of Texas A&M really understood the spirit of the 12th man, so
yeah,
that they could understand like why, you know, I I could walk away from that game feeling exactly like you said, like, man, how about the 12th man? Like, he really embodies the spirit of Texas A&M. Like, even though that sucked, we just came off of a horrible season. We fired our coach. None of our, we had 55 scholarship players out there. We lost the game, all of that, but the 12th man didn't give up,
yeah,
you know, and people outside of A&M definitely look at that and probably think that's the stupidest thing ever. But I mean, we eat that up. I love it. I mean, I'm not gonna shy away from it. I love
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Um, but I do kind of wish that more people outside of our school understood that. But at the same time, I'm cool with, especially here lately, like the past, since Jimbo's gotten us out there and really, you know, I don't know. It just seems like the last like 3 or 4 years we've gotten made fun of more and more, than
yeah,
we have, and we've always gotten made fun of to some degree. But the past couple years, it's been like everybody all of a sudden discovered us and is making fun of us from different fan bases, and it's like, okay,
yeah,
like, imagine going to Tennessee and being like, man, that Rocky Top song they were singing. What was that song you were saying? Like, good old Rocky Top. Woo. That's That sounded so stupid, dude. Didn't that sound so stupid?
Yeah,
Like, why do y'all do that? That's so stupid. Why do y'all do that? Like, imagine that. What
yeah,
would they think? What would they think? They would come back and to you and be like, okay, you
yeah.
know? But yet,
Cool.
but they will do the same thing back to us and think that we're supposed to be offended. Like I heard several people literally at the Tennessee game. I just happened to pick on them in this example, but several people asked me about the yell leaders. That's such a point of contention for so many people. Like,
Yeah,
why? What's so hard for to understand about they they lead our yell? Have you ever seen a band director that does this too to keep everybody on beat? Like it's the same thing.
yeah,
We just keep it all together. Like, oh, I'm sorry that we're not like every single other school, including high school and junior high in America, that has the exact same chance of defense, defense, defense. Like, sorry, we could be a bit more creative than that,
yeah. No, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because I could get on here. I've
Yeah,
got
I
a
can't
list
say
of
I
I
I
got a
don't
list of things that have
I
pissed
don't
me
know
off
why
over the
I
past couple of
started that tangent.
years.
Sorry about that, everyone
You're
listening.
good. Well, and there's so many instances of it, but like, it's college football, man. Like,
Yeah,
it's supposed to be weird,
yeah,
and maybe A&M makes it a little more weirder than it ought to be sometimes. But that's just it's what we do, you know. Like, I can guarantee you, in September or October of this year, I'm predicting the future here. Uh, some stupid account is going to film midnight yell practice and put it on Twitter
yeah,
and be like, "Oh my god, look at this!" Like it happens every single season, and like like who cares? Like no one cares. You can you
yeah.
know if you think you're getting one over on us, like you know, good for you, man. Like I hope you have a great day because because no one over here cares. But uh last thing on the bowl game, we can get into some other topics. Um, a couple guys that really flashed that I'm excited to see more of. Um, I think Gabriel Brownlow Dindy, him finally getting like a heavy dose of playing time, uh, did some really nice things. I
Mhm.
think he's super talented kid, super powerful and quick off the ball. Will probably be uh, if not a starter, and like what's really a starter on the D line, like he's going to be heavily in the rotation next
Yeah,
year. So excited to see more of him and David Hicks. Um, I'm trying to think who else. Uh, I know these corners got picked on a little bit, going up against some grown men on the Oklahoma State side, but um, felt like most of the game that Bravion Rogers wasn't in that position. Like he wasn't getting burned out there. He just had a you know 6'4", 220-pound receiver,
yeah,
that would just kind of outmuscle him. He was a do everything kind of guy at Lagrange, the true freshman. He's hardly played at all this season. He had to start the other night, so um, I think there's some potential with the young corners. Um, how is it when you look around at the rest of the college football world, and especially like at a school like Florida State, who once their quarterback went down, like everything just kind of fell apart, um, and they couldn't do anything on offense. A&M had four capable quarterbacks this year. Like our fourth string guy, true freshman, threw for 360 yards, and you've got guys at other schools that can't even complete a pass. Sometimes it looks like because they're just not any good. So um, props to Jimbo or whoever was responsible because next year with this like with a QB room of Connor Wigman, Jalen Henderson, and Marcel Reed and Miles O'Neill, as a true freshman, that's a salty bunch right there.
yeah.
Like obviously you want Connor to play every game because he's tremendous, but uh, your 2 and 3 are not bad at all.
Well, I'm just looking forward to letting the race horses out of the stable, because I think that's what you've seen towards the tail end of this year. Jimbo he could he could recruit him. He could get him in here. He's a QB whisperer, but they couldn't hear what he was saying, and so it would take him 45 seconds to snap the ball.
Yeah.
But you get him out there and you say, "Hey, go play your game, and let's get something going. Let's simplify this offense and go." Then I think you could. I think you could have a good offense. So you know, we have had a good. I mean, that's one thing you could probably say about Jimbo's tenure is we've had the luxury of having a bunch of good quarterbacks. Just hadn't been able to really showcase them correctly.
Well, and look how well Haynes King did when he got in a new offense,
Yeah,
a new program.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So speaking of, I'm not sure if we had hired any of the coaches the last time we talked, but we've got a full coaching
Mm,
staff here at A&M.
yeah, I don't know if we had. I think we had only hired. Yeah, we had only hired Mike Elko because we
We
did an
definitely hadn't hired
emergency
Klein yet.
pod.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we hadn't
um,
hired Klein. We didn't know about Elijah, what that deal was going to be.
yeah.
Obviously, he's off to Syracuse to be the DC. Um, but man, I really like what Elko did with his staff.
Mhm.
It's a mix of some of the guys from Duke, um, and then he kind of went big game hunting for some other guys. And I think you know I think you have to start with Colin Klein as your offensive coordinator. If you don't know who that is, and the name sounds familiar, he was one of the three invites to New York when Johnny Manziel won the Heisman, and I think he finished third. I think Te'o was second in votes,
Yeah,
but was an awesome college quarterback at K State. Um, has been coaching at K State for a while, quarterback coach, then coordinator, and just killed it these last 2 years as the OC. I think Notre Dame tried to hire him away last year. Uh, he wouldn't leave. Penn State tried to hire him this offseason, and he wouldn't leave. And that's his alma mater that he's at. And then Elko
yeah. I
comes
mean,
in, and
he was slated to take over. I mean, they were getting him ready to take over the head coaching position down the road, weren't they? I mean, that
well,
was
I think that's probably going to end up happening. Um,
yeah.
uh,
I don't expect that he's here to stay forever, but
yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Now the coach they got, he's not super young, but he's not super old either, and he's
mm,
doing pretty well. But if things ever do go south there, in the next couple of years, and he could take a head job somewhere else,
yeah,
um, and uh, and get that experience. But I think to pull him out of there when, like, especially for a like in the same role, that's big because like
yeah,
they really uh, had it going on offensively. And watching some of the stuff they do, it's super creative. There's no uh, I feel like everything I say is going to bang on Jimbo, but like it's just a modern, like, badass offense.
yeah,
Like there's misdirection, uh there's screens, there's motion, there's pulling guards, there's uh you know it it makes it easy on the quarterback to operate it. Um, the first time I saw Will Howard play, I thought this guy's terrible. Um, Colin Klein has molded him into a pretty formidable player at quarterback. In fact, he just transferred to Ohio State. I presume to be the starter there next season. But um, really sharp, really highly, like very very highly thought of in the coaching world. And I think it's probably one of the best hires that he could have made. Like, it's the guy at Washington is not attainable as an OC. Like, he's going to be a head coach soon. So this was probably as good as you could do. I think it's pretty close to a home run hire.
yeah. I mean, he's he's the only one of he's the only one of the three from the 2012 without a Netflix documentary about him. So hopefully,
One
hopefully
day.
that'll be coming one day soon. But
Here's the guy that led the offense at A&M to a national championship. Here's his story.
So I remember him as a player at K State. I admittedly haven't followed him as much as a coach, but K State has been, I mean, I haven't followed him specifically, saying that I'm watching his offenses or whatever, but I have been following K State or aware of them over the last several years, and um, they've they've had some decent teams,
Yeah.
Um, I have watched a bit of their film since we've hired him, to see what you were saying about it's more modern. Um, it's the breath of fresh air that we're looking for, and I think like it's not the gigantic pendulum swing, that like you think about where we were with Sumlin, where it was getting to be almost like a gadget program where, we were really trying, like our defense was terrible and couldn't keep up because we were trying to do all these, you know, um, quicker, fast paced offense, but we'd go 3 and out and then
Yeah.
defense was on the field the whole game.
Yeah.
So then we the pendulum swung way over here to where now we just bore you to death to beat you, and we're going to beat you 13-0, but it's going to be a really long and boring game, and we're gonna have possession of the ball for 75% of the game. So I think it's not like we're swinging back the other direction. I think we're more in the middle there where he's gonna be able to work the two together. And I think that's where, and we probably said this in the last episode. Actually, I know that we said this in the last episode because we got off of here after we had hired Elko. I said something about, like, the biggest thing that I wanted as part of this was a defensive minded head coach,
Yeah.
because if you look at the standard, good quality head coaches that are national championship winning head coaches, almost every time they are, defensive head coaches, and
Yeah.
when they're not, they're Jimbo Fisher,
Yeah.
So then right after that, right after we got done filming or recording, it was, I guess, the next day that they did like the full on press conference and all of that. And Ross Bjork was saying that their number one thing that they were worried about is hiring a defensive minded head coach. And I
Yeah.
was I was telling Emily, like, hey, I just said that last night,
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so like that's what I think. But part of that comes from, like, hey, if you're Mike Elko, like you're not gonna want to hire an offensive coordinator that is going to cripple your defense because they go 3 and out every 5 minutes,
Yeah.
So I think that comes into effect too. But I like the idea of modernizing the offense. That's what we all want. So let's do it. You know what I mean? We're
Yeah.
here. Let's run with it. I think it's a great hire.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we first hired Jimbo, I kind of liked the idea of like, oh, like uh he's an offensive minded guy. Like we're gonna have, you know, this great offense, his offense, and we're just gonna have that every year. It doesn't matter who the coordinator is. Like, with someone like after Cliff, we couldn't really find another coordinator to really replicate that success. And I'm like, oh well, it's just gonna be Jimbo's offense every year, and it's gonna be great. Well, it turned out it was Jimbo's offense every year, and it was terrible.
Yeah.
So now I think at least we have, you know, uh, a proven defensive product with Mike Elko at this school.
Yeah.
And even at Duke, he fielded really solid defenses with a fraction of the talent that he's going to have here. And now you can go and get a guy like Colin Klein and say, hey, like you're the captain of this. Like I'm the head
Mhm.
coach. I'm doing all the operational type of things. you do the offense, and
Yeah.
whatever direction you want to go, uh, whatever types of guys you want to recruit, we're going to go recruit them and play the way you want to play. Now, obviously, he's going to have input on you know personnel and those types of things, but when it comes to the design of the offense and things like that, and what they're going to do, I mean, uh, Colin Klein wouldn't have left his alma mater to come here and not be given full reign of the offense. So I think that's
You
it.
wouldn't think, but that's where I mean, I am going to question because we talked about this earlier. Um, what is the distinction and what is the role? I need as a fan some role clarity between offensive coordinator, co-offensive coordinator, and associate head coach of the offense. Those those are three positions that we have coaches for.
Yeah,
And run game coordinator is the fourth. So that they all have a slash. So we have an associate head coach of the offense slash running backs, offensive coordinator slash quarterbacks, co-offensive coordinator slash wide receivers, and the run game coordinator slash offensive line. So maybe they're just titles. They're probably just titles for you know since they are public officials, or
yeah, yeah.
they are um,
I
paid with
assume it.
taxpayer money.
Yeah,
So
I assume it
uh,
has to do with hey, if we call you you know, our run game coordinator, you get X amount of dollars,
right,
extra.
right.
So it's got to be.
It's
Uh,
probably that, but it you know
it's weird.
it's weird.
Yeah, no, I got you. Um, and what's interesting is, you know, I think he maybe brought like one anal like I'm speaking about Klein here. I think Klein brought like one analyst from K State. All the other offensive hires are uh, from other places. Like we got
Yeah.
the O line coach from Duke, the running back coach from Duke, uh, the receivers coach from freaking Alabama, which is awesome. Um, that's probably one of the best hires that we made. I think him and Klein together are both tremendous.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I guess the tight end's also Duke. So uh, I guess kind of Duke heavy on the offense with Klein and Wiggins um, as the two outsiders, if you will.
Yeah.
But both very high profile guys, very 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 good coaches and very good recruiters. Um, I'm just so excited, and I'm so glad. And I promise we're not going to do this all off season, but I'm so glad we did this when we did and not after next year, uh, because now you still have Connor Wickman, you still have Noah Thomas and Moose Muhammad and Jade Walker,
Hmm.
and yeah, like we're gonna have good players in the future, but with this quarterback, I've just got so much faith in what he can do
Hmm.
in given the right system. If the O line clicks, if and I like the hire, I like Cushing a lot. If he can get these O line guys right who have talent, um, and Klein can get Wigman on the same page and really get this thing cranked up, this can be a hell of an offense next year and like really really uh, light things up in the SEC.
Yeah, and I mean, I was always a fan with Jimbo's during the Jimbo tenure. I was always a fan of um, the retention that we had of coaches, and just the lack of turnover that we had. I think that that's a good thing. So
Yeah,
the fact that a lot of these coaches have already been coaching together, I think is a good thing. Obviously, they're all coming from Duke. It's the obvious choice there, or where they're coming from, right? But I will say, and I'm not only saying this because of Elko, um, the last 2 years I have been very unhappy with Texas A&M football, um, and I have watched a lot of Duke football, and on the side been texting like, man, sure would be nice to still have Elko. You know what I mean? So I have. I'm not just saying that I've gone back and caught up. I was following Duke in real time. It really wasn't even thinking about will we hire Elko down the road, but I really just I always liked him when he was here at A&M, and I wanted to kind of just see how his career progressed, and maybe kind of hoped that maybe I honestly, I actually, I guess I could be very transparent here. I kind of was hoping that he might fizzle as a head coach and come back and be a defensive coordinator for us again.
Yeah.
Because I really wasn't expecting for the Jimbo era to cave in the way it did.
To
So
cave in 2 years into a 10-year
yeah,
extension.
so if you'd asked me 3 years ago, are we gonna be where Elko is a better head coach, or sitting as a better head coach than Jimbo Fisher?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought so.
Yeah.
But watching Duke and seeing like how they were as a team, like they had a noticeably tough defense. Like their defense was noticeably tough. But something that I noticed in addition to that was, and their offense was they weren't like, as I was watching them for the Elko-ness, right? Like, okay, I want to see how Elko's doing, but their offense was pretty salty. Like
It
they
was.
had a good offense, and so then you're like, hey, Duke's actually got a pretty good team here, and this past year the ACC was a it was a good conference. It wasn't like it was
Yeah.
a poor conference, and so
Well, and
um,
and and his quarterback gets hurt against Notre Dame, and they gave Notre Dame all they wanted in that game.
oh,
And with,
absolutely.
with College Game Day at Duke for the first time ever, um, great environment, great game. And then after, I'm not sure if Leonard ever played the rest of the year. If he did, he was very hobbled.
Mhm.
So that kind of put a damper on the season and things offensively. And his record wasn't as good as it was the first year, where he took them to 9-4 with a bowl win. But um, that season, his first year is extremely impressive. Like they were god awful before he got there. Um, like he didn't really have time to recruit or bring in
Right.
at that point. I don't think he was able to bring in very many transfers, and he took the same roster that the previous coaches had and made him a 9-4 team and borderline top 25 football team. And
Yeah.
um, and the offense and the defense both played very well. You watch that offensive line, and there's one guy that's going to get drafted and four future accountants or guys in business. And that's no shot at that. It's just a reality. And with like, we have that O-line coach now that was able to teach those guys to play as a unit and not make big mistakes. And
Right.
were they perfect? No. Did they get beat sometimes? Yes. But on the whole, like, very physical unit, like ran the ball well. They stopped the run. Their defense, like an Elko defense does, was constantly flying around, making plays. So um, it's that's what I'm excited for. Is like there's a million things, like all the coaching hires I'm on board with, but
Mhm.
Elko being the guy at the helm that instills that type of culture, and that type of effort. Uh, it's going to be cool to watch. Like it's going to be a team that you're proud to say, hey, that's my team, and they play hard no matter what. So
Yeah.
sorry, I got off on a bit of a tangent there, but
No,
um,
you're good because I mean, to try to go in and give insight on each and every individual one of these coaches would be too much, right? But I think keeping it at that level to say overall, this staff is a decent staff. A lot of it, like probably half of it's from Duke. You know, look at how good they were at Duke with the talent that they had at Duke. What will they be able to do with the talent that they'll have at Texas A&M? But then, how do you supplement that? You take that unit and then you sprinkle in some even better coaches, probably with the wide receivers coach from Bama, and Colin Klein from Kansas State, and who else? The defensive line coach from what was it, Florida?
Yeah.
We had,
And previously Penn State, Sean
yeah, and
Spencer.
Penn State before that, and so you sprinkle in all these others. That, I mean, that's a good staff for Elko to put together. And I mean, admittedly, I'm not the coaching expert. I'm not here to say that each, like, oh, I've been following Patrick Doherty from the time that he was at, oh, my mouse is going to work. I've followed him since he was at Defiance as a defensive line coach. I don't even know what Defiance is, but he was there
Yeah.
in 2008
I think
apparently.
it's a movie.
But yeah, that's a great movie actually.
But yeah, but like, and I haven't, like I've tried to like look into each of these guys a little bit, and I still need to look at what Coach McGriff has done, because they hired him like very recently, and
Mhm.
he's kind of an unknown to me. But you look at Sean Spencer, and he was the Elijah Robinson at Penn State. Like, he was an incredible D-line coach, incredible recruiter.
Yeah,
They were consistently in the top 5 or 10 in sacks in the country. And then, also known as a plus recruiter. Jay Bateman was once the hottest DC in the country when he was at Army, and, took a bunch of guys at Army and fielded, pretty good defenses, and,
sure.
helped, I think that they took OU to overtime whenever they had Kyler Murray. Also known as almost everyone on the staff, like, just from reading Twitter and other people's opinions, um, like almost every one of them is known as an exceptional recruiter, but also as a good coach. Like Jay Bateman is the DC. He's a plus recruiter, but he's also a plus linebackers coach. Like
Yeah,
uh, Holloman Wiggins, like, um, excellent coach. Like, look at the guys that Bama had. Like, he produced the first Heisman receiver in who knows how long, like
right.
30 or so years. And like, they were just a factory for receivers there for a while. Did some good
Well,
things with Jermaine Burton, this year.
and I think the one that I will point out is the one we talked about before we recorded, which is Tommy Moffitt, the strength and
Yes.
conditioning coach.
Yes.
Because
Thank you for bringing that up.
just very quickly, like, a lot of people know that he was at LSU for a while. Like, if you follow this, you know this. But we hired the strength and conditioning coach, who was at LSU for 20 years, 21 years. Prior to that, so he was at Tennessee from 94 to 97. And I don't know when Tennessee won the national championship, but it was shortly after that.
I feel like it
Um,
was, yeah, like 98, 99.
yeah, something like that. So from 94 to 97, he was at Tennessee. Then from 98 to 99, he was at Miami, which, 2000 and 2001 was
Yeah.
the height of the U, right?
Yeah.
So then you had
Go go look
LSU.
go look at that 01 Miami roster, and there's like 10 NFL Hall of Famers on it.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane.
So then he goes to LSU in 2000, and he was there until 2021. And so just in his time as a coach, he's won, according to our website here, 6 SEC championships and 3 national championships. Of course, as a strength and conditioning coach, but he has been a strength and conditioning coach for some incredible teams through the years, and that excites me.
Well, and he mentored Scott Cochran was like the big name at Bama for a while. He was a Moffitt disciple. Like, he came from the Moffitt strength and conditioning, like, coaching tree.
Yeah,
He's just, and he's been in this for so long, and I've got a little bit of a story. So my mom is really good friends with the the wife of the defensive coordinator for the Mart Panthers in Mart, Texas, 2A, powerhouse school. His name's Shane Martin, great dude, and we always talk football whenever we're together. He's
Mhm.
a big LSU guy, and when Brian Kelly got hired, I was like, "Hey, coach, like how do you feel about Brian Kelly?" He was like, "I like him." He's like, "But he let my guy go. He let Tommy Moffitt go. I think he's the best strength coach in the business." And so that was 2 years ago when we hired him here lately. I texted him. I was like, "Hey," I was like, "How about A&M getting Coach Moffitt?" He said, "Man," he said, "I'll say it again." He said, "Coach Moffitt is the best in the game." He said he helped me out with both of my sons' knee injuries and helped me rehab them and get them back going. So I know that's just a small anecdote, but the guy's got skins on the wall, and like I tend to shy, like I'm a little bit gun shy about hiring uh, like anyone over the age of 60, which I'm not even sure if he is or not. Like maybe he is, maybe he's not. I think he probably is, but I think he's still got his fastball. Like he's going to come in here and and turn this program into a a team that looks and is conditioned like a championship program. Like you used to see those guys when LSU would come play here, and their guys are freaking jacked. Like they look like NFL players, and
Yeah.
uh, sometimes we have that, sometimes we don't. I feel like when we lost Jerry Schmidt and Elko, uh, you started seeing more injuries and maybe guys not develop as much as they should have been. So that's freaking Elko 1A, Tommy Moffitt 1B, Colin Klein after that. So I think the collection of all these guys is just a super impressive staff.
Yeah, I agree. Um, well, we're at 51 minutes, so we probably ought to get into a little bit of transfer portal. And do you have
Yeah.
anything else that you want to say about the coaches, though?
No, I think I'm set. I do want to bring up Sutton's tweet or Sutton's comment on here
Yeah.
because I've refreshed my browser over here and we have breaking news. This has never happened on the podcast when news has broken. I don't have a sounder for it, but uh, Troy receiver Jabray Barber is expected to transfer to A&M.
All
I
right.
think that is so. If you're on Twitter, back when we had Sumlin, it was the "yes sir," tweet from Sumlin. Jimbo doesn't have internet, so he didn't ever tweet.
Yeah.
But Coach Elko's thing is the Money Manziel gif of Johnny doing this and the lock emoji. So he's tweeted 6 locks in the past 2 days, and I think this is only the fourth to announce. So there's still maybe a couple more that we're waiting on. But we just talked before the show, like, hey, like we're really light at receiver, even with the 2 transfers and the 2 freshmen. So um, just briefly looking at Jabray Barber, definitely a slot guy at 5'10", had 75 catches and just under 1,000 yards receiving. Um, Pretty good. I'll take that. I'll take that every day.
Yeah, for sure. And we need it. We need as many as we can get right now. We're thin at that position, and they're doing a good job in this transfer portal. I think that's the new era of college football. You're going to have to do it. We've said that for the past couple seasons with Jimbo. On it's just it's been glaringly obvious, that we haven't gotten good transfers, and look at the teams that have. Look at the Ole Miss and Colorado's and even
Oregon.
even USC's, Oregon State. Look at Oregon State. Oregon State this year. What? I mean, in my adult life, I have not seen Oregon State win a football game, and like they're good. They were
Yeah,
good this year because of
they were great.
transfers. And
Well, and look at Washington, who's about to play for the freaking championship.
yeah,
Michael Penix transfer.
yep,
Jalen Polk transfer. The running back was a transfer. The best corner on the team was a transfer. Like you can't neglect that part of the game.
right.
In this day.
And I think we have. It in some way. Now this is really kind of something that this you're getting my free thought here. This is
Is this a conspiracy?
it could be. I don't mean for it to be. It's just I'm thinking out loud, so it may kind of come off to be a conspiracy.
Yeah,
But you know, think about how how much we have really focused on those recruiting stars over the last couple years, and we had that number one class in history and all that kind of stuff, but we didn't have any transfers. And look at how that youth really hurt our team the last 2 years. And then you think about all these other teams that have come from nowhere because they have all these seniors from transfer portal.
yeah.
So I mean I think there's something to really working the transfer portal. And as it sits right now, what number did you say that we were in the um I'm trying to
In the
find it.
ranking
Yeah, in the ranking for not in transfers, but
in high school,
yeah, high school.
I think we were 21st in the composite.
So we're 21st in high school, which normally we'd be losing our minds of like, oh my god.
Sound the alarm if if that happens at any point in
Right.
the last decade.
But right now we're sitting at number 3 in the transfer rankings, which haven't fully been fleshed out yet, as I'm understanding from you. So, I mean, the way I see it when I look at who we're with on that top end of Ole Miss, Colorado, us, and then Louisville, like
Yeah,
that's that's good company in the transfer portal, in my opinion.
and you're absolutely right. It's like after this transition and the guys that we lost, uh, Elko and this staff had they had to do that. It
Mm,
was a necessity to go out and they might sign like 18 transfers or more than that.
yeah,
Like it's going to be a big number. When the most Jimbo ever brought was like 6 or 7, like maybe and mostly guys that didn't play a whole lot. To be
right.
quite honest, um, and I don't think that I think the norm going forward after this coaching change is probably somewhere in the middle where like you know you like maybe back in the day you would take a guy out of high school, say, oh, like he's not there right now, maybe I can develop him and he'll be a good player for us eventually. Now you don't have to do that if you don't want
Right.
to. Like you can go and be like, oh, we like this kid, he could be good, but there's a player at Old Dominion that was all conference that wants to come here. We just had a guy leave and he can come in right away and play right away. So I think it's going to be a mix, and like, uh, I don't know if we'll take this many again in the future,
Yeah,
but
sure,
we might, you never know.
sure.
But I think the formula is kind of what Ole Miss is doing. Like you, and they really don't even recruit that well. They recruit fine, but not at a Georgia or Ohio State or Alabama level.
Yeah.
But you still want to sign, the elite players out of high school, as many as you can,
Oh, sure,
and
sure.
then fill your like go cherry pick your needs from the transfer portal or get some strong veteran depth uh or maybe if you've got 3 good receivers, go get a great one out of the portal.
Yeah. Well, and that's I think what I'm saying. Well, apparently, like while we are doing this, Louisville must have gotten a new commit or something because we've now fallen to number 4.
Hey,
Uh,
this
on
stuff
our
changes by the minute.
but yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at with the Jimbo thing was I feel like we just completely neglected the transfer portal, and
Yeah,
it was like a last case, or like if we had to get something from it, then we did, you
yeah.
know, and I don't think that's the way. I think you have to have that balance in modern college football now, um, because
Well,
you gotta. I mean, your high school guys, that's your pipeline, for for the future, but your transfer guys are the pipeline for today, or
Yeah.
and so I think you got to have a little bit of both, especially because every year you're going to have guys transfer out, so you're
Oh
going to
yeah.
have to replace them.
Yeah. And guys like and most of the time it's probably a promising young player that is just kind of buried on the depth chart. They're like, hey, like I want to go and actually get some playing time, but
Right.
um, that's just the nature of the game. And I'm glad that we have a coach and a coaching and recruiting staff that understands that.
Yeah.
And to my knowledge, Elko employs a individual whose their only job is the transfer portal. Like they're in charge of transfer portal recruiting, and they're the person that looks at all the film and all the does all the scouting. Like, hey, you're the transfer person. The other guys, like they're like we'll do high school and all that stuff, but it's delegated and like it's very organized. And I think it's very it's a good recipe for success. So
Yeah.
um, we don't have too much time, so I definitely don't want to go over every single guy that we've gotten so far. Um, I feel like I definitely, I do want to highlight Nick Scorton, the defensive end from Purdue. Led the Big Ten in sacks this past season. Was second team All Big Ten. Is from Bryan, and you know, was kind of like was actually listed as an inside linebacker coming out of school. Not super highly rated, and ended up at Purdue, and it has just turned into an awesome football player. So he's he's home. Like the recruits always say, I'm home. He actually is home. In Bryan College Station. So that's I think he's like the 9th overall rated player in the transfer portal. So that's a big get. We lost some guys on the D line. So I think he will factor in right away. So that's a big one. When I a few when the season ended and we were seeing guys leave A&M, we hadn't seen any of the guys come into A&M from the portal yet. You looked at our defensive back room and you're like, man, we don't have any bodies. Like if one guy gets hurt in our safety room, like that's it. Like we don't have anybody else. So they've made that a focus. They've got, gosh, so far they've got 5 defensive backs from the transfer portal. Um, most notably, probably I know Will Lee the third from K State, Donovan Saunders, and Trey Jones. Trey Jones in particular, I like because Georgia wanted him, and if Georgia wants him, you're probably pretty good. So
Yeah.
that's one to that's one to keep an eye on, and more on the way. Like I think they're going to keep after the defensive backs in the portal. There's talk that perhaps a former A&M player, Denver Harris, could be back in maroon and white from LSU after transferring there. So I know that's kind of a what's the word? Polarizing name, and if you follow this stuff closely, but um, you know, gotta trust our coaches to do the right thing and get these guys in order. So uh, that's kind of I think they're starting like the first kind of round of guys they got were uh, probably some rotational guys uh, and some depth guys. But now what they're getting into is like, hey, like these guys are going to compete to start, like, or this guy's going to play day one. So, um, I think it's not slowing down. So if you're on Twitter, you follow Coach Elko, you're going to see a lot of locks get tweeted out. You're going to see the Money Manziel gift get tweeted out a few more times in the next couple weeks.
I sure hope so. I think they're doing a good job, and it's so chaotic that, quite frankly, I haven't
It's a
really,
lot. It's a lot.
I haven't really watched a whole lot of film or anything like that. I mean, once it slows down, we'll probably get a little bit deeper on these guys. But,
Yeah. And
you
there's so
know,
many names where like I'll see someone going, I'm like, ooh, like that's a good player. And then like I'll forget about it, and then I'll look him up. I'm like, oh crap, he committed to Arkansas, or
yeah,
some other
yeah,
place. And
exactly.
like, it's just such a whirlwind to even just reading all the names that are in there. You're just like, oh crap, like he's going somewhere, like he's leaving, but
Hmm.
it's wild.
Yeah.
Um, last guy, I almost forgot to mention him. former A&M target, former member of Chase Caldwell's fantasy team, son of Emmitt Smith, EJ Smith, running
Yeah,
back from Stanford, is on the market and looking like the Aggies have a good shot to land him.
I sure hope so. I love that guy. Um, and I don't think he has done very well there. Not the way he should have,
Yeah,
but
I think he's had some good moments, and especially in 2022, he was playing really well before he got hurt.
mhm.
And yeah, they just
They
didn't
didn't
really use.
utilize him as
They
much.
didn't. Yeah, they didn't. So he'd be one. I mean, we've only got 3 running backs. Like you probably can't survive a season in the SEC with 3 running backs. You're going to need a couple more than that. So EJ Smith, that'd be one I'd really like to see.
Emmitt Smith Jr. belongs in Texas. I'm just
That's
gonna
right.
put it that way.
And his sister played soccer here
She did.
already,
She
so
did.
we've got that connection. So
Yeah.
maybe that's one of the. Hey, there's the comment right there. Does EJ's sister go to A&M or?
Yes, John, you are correct. She did. I don't know if she still does or
I
not.
feel like she may be graduated by now, but she definitely did play soccer here and
Mhm.
finish her career here, to my knowledge. Um, but yeah, we've said all we can say for this 1 hour and
6-minute podcast.
6 minute episode. So, but felt good to be back in the studio, back on the mic. I've actually heard from a couple listeners that I did not know were listeners in the past month. So if y'all are still listeners, appreciate you very much.
Absolutely.
If I have not spoken to you and you're still listening, obviously, thank you very much. We appreciate all the support. Big off season ahead. Texas and Oklahoma are joining the conference. There's going to be a 12-team playoff. We have a new coach. We're trying to get new players daily,
Yeah.
and it's very fluid. So stick with us. We'll be coming to you guys throughout the off season. Um, we'll try to work on a more regular cadence and let you guys know whatever it turns out to be. But for now, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Giga Maggies.